So, you got a movie for me?
Yes, sir. So there's this guy called Ehud, and he's played by Mel Gibson. He lives in interesting times. More's the pity for him. Wise Judge Othniel's gone, and without the big man, it's anarchy. It's dog-eat-dog out there.
Hang on, why are you talking like that?
I don't know. I just thought that it fit.
Oh, no, sorry, you're alright. I just thought there was something wrong, please. Please, I like it. Carry on.
So this Ehud's a loner, a left-hander. He plays by his own rules, and he certainly ain't gonna be no dog's dinner. He's Mel Gibson.
Of course he is.
If you put maggots in a tin, they eat each other, and eventually you get one big maggot. And the big maggot's name in this story is Eglon. King Eglon, if you're in his presence. He's founded a little fiefdom, going on an empire, and all the peoples around and about are turning towards him like compass needles pointing towards north. And if you want to be somebody, you better worship who he worships and kill who he tells you to.
He sounds like he'll thicken the plot. Sorry, please.
Back with Ehud in the hill country of Ephraim, things aren't going too well. People say he's lost it. He's no good. He's got no direction. Sure enough, we see him hitting the bottle. He's knocking back scotch like it's milk. His ex-wife mocks him, turns away from him in the street. Cue dreamy flashback, and we see Ehud in clean clothes and his wife on his arm, and she's laughing. And then snap back to the present, and his only friend is a gourd of wine, and he's stumbling around in his gloomy flat, and his ashtrays overflowing, and he falls over and smashes a coffee table.
What I want to know is, what on earth happened to derail this man's life?
Well, sir, while he's lying there, we'll have this big flashback. And we find out that Ehud's uncle is a tribal leader, and he says he'll give this rich grazing territory and his daughter's hand in marriage to anyone who helps him conquer this town called Debir. And Ehud decides to go for it, and we see him in the HQ, and he's talking to his uncle and the soldiers, and he's a shrewd tactician. But he's not just a thinker, he's Mel Gibson. And we'll have some visceral fight scenes in the battle for Debir, and Ehud's sword will get knocked from his hand, and he'll have to use his fists, and it'll be meaty and satisfying, and the babes are going to love him, sir, and the bros are going to want to be him. And the uncle character, though, he's a coward, and Ehud tries to help him, but he's just not very good at fighting and killing, which is embarrassing. But Ehud's done it, and it's clear that he's the one who's led the Ephraimites to victory. And then his uncle betrays him, and he gives the grazing territory to some tribal big man with a sculpted beard and a fancy embroidered smock. And Ehud just can't believe it. He's Mel Gibson, for crying out loud.
So he drinks because his land got given to the guy in the floral smock?
No, sir. It gets worse. The Ephraimites are about to get attacked by some nasty Moabite gangsters.
Uh-oh, they sound like the bad guys.
Oh, for sure. They're the worst. They attack when the Israelites are unawares, and they kill unarmed people, which shows they have no honor. And you see the head honcho coming in and looking around and choosing himself slaves from the civilians.
But hang on, where's Ehud at? He doesn't sound like the kind of soldier that would let that happen.
He was fishing in the river, and he gets back too late. and there's women in the street howling at the sky, and there's innocent Ephraimites everywhere in tears, and you see the uncle cowering in a cupboard, and then you see the well-groomed guy having Ehud's land taken away from him by the Moabites. And Ehud runs through the town to his house as fast as he can, and when he finds it, there's black smoke, and he's like, no, and it's his house that's on fire. And then he sees his wife, and she's hurt, and she's shivering, but she walks away from him in disgust. And then the sad music reprises, and we have a close-up of Mel Gibson's anguish.
Poor, poor Mel.
I know, this is rock bottom for him, sir. Now you understand why he ended up where he ended up. And there he is back in the present day, on the floor with the coffee table all around him. But don't worry, he's about to start turning things round.
How, though?
Training montage, sir.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. We'll see him tipping drink down the plug hole and tidying up the flat, jogging up the steep hills of a frame like Mel Gibson. And we'll see him collapse on a high peak, and it'll be dawn, it'll be beautiful. And then we'll see him planning. He'll stay up all night, drinking coffee, looking at architectural maps, and you'll see that he's really clever. And then he'll make himself this weird sword, which is sort of slightly curved along its flat edge.
Skills! Is he a blacksmith, is he?
No, sir, he's a badass. And we'll see him strap this thing onto his right thigh, and it's ingenious. It follows the shape of his buff legs. And then he looks in the mirror, holding his arms out, and you can see, you just can't see the sword under his clothes at all. It's perfect. He's Mel Gibson.
So, what's he up to?
Wait for it. Next scene, he goes to see his uncle.
Oh, I get it. He's going to kill his uncle for betraying him.
That's what his uncle, Mr. Promise Breaker himself, thinks. He's all scared when Ehud comes, and he's already making excuses about ripping him off and why he gave the land to the ego in the smock. But Ehud's all like, shut it. This is gonna get real. I'm Mel Gibson. And he tells the old man the plan, and the father-in-law is like, whoa, and he's full of respect again, and he's off whispering in the ears of important men in the tribe, and all the while we hear nothing.
Sounds like they're planning for an epic finale.
Exactly. And then Ehud's off to see Eglon and give him tribute.
Oh, this sounds scary and dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Even Mel Gibson is tense. And up above the palace, he hides this trumpet behind a boulder. And then he goes down and he has these two servants, and they're carrying the tribute. And it's like a really good one, like a golden ram or something. And it's so good that King Eglon tells his men to send the giver in. And security stop the servants, and they pat Ehud himself down, but they find nothing. And then they take him through to the throne room, and so he enters, and we see King Eglon holding his court. He's got food everywhere, and grapes, and drink, and slaves, and there's beautiful boys, and girls, and whatever you want. And maybe there are some crazy rare cats draped everywhere, or a monkey on a chain. And when you get closer, you see that Eglon is the Moabite who took the land and trashed the Israelites in that flashback. It's him, all right. Only now he's massive. I mean, he's huge. You can't imagine this guy getting up. It's regal, though, with him. It's like he's merged with the throne. It's like he's a sentient growth from the palace itself. And he's sharp. He controls the whole conversation. And at first he disses Ehud, and all his courtiers throw back their heads and laugh. And Ehud doesn't just take it, though. He has some pithy retorts up his sleeve.
Uh-oh.
But sure enough, for a moment you think he's pushed it too far, and there's this deathly silence. But then King Eglon laughs. He actually thinks this Israelite is a breath of fresh air. He's sick of his fawning courtiers. He had thought the hill tribes were very primitive. But he didn't know they were going to send him Mel Gibson. He's loving it. They're feasting together. But at a certain point, Ehud turns to the king, all serious-like, and tells him he has a secret message. And Eglon shouts at his attendants to be silent. And then he thinks better of it, and he tries to dismiss the whole court. One of his heavies nervously asks if that's really safe. And before the king has a chance to respond, Ehud says, just tie my sword hand behind my back, and that way I can still drink. And he lifts his goblet with his left hand, slightly awkwardly. And King Eglon nods to the heavy, and the big oaf just shrugs and does the king's bidding. And once Ehud's right hand is safely tied behind his back, the room empties. And Ehud goes real close to Eglon, and he whispers, I have a message from God for you. Tough clever and pious too. And all that while he's reaching down with his left hand, his trusty left hand, to the sword that's on his thigh. Into the king's belly before Eglon knows what's happened. The sword disappears right into his majesty. And Ehud's hand too plunges in up to the wrist. He gives it a little twist and with some effort pulls his hand free, leaving the sword inside the king, and the flesh just kind of seals over the wound, leaving nothing but another crease in the fat. And Ehud goes out calm and cool as Mel Gibson, and he lets the heavy search him to check he hasn't stolen a statue or a cat or anything, and he tells them that the king has gone to the loo.
Gone to the loo?
Yeah.
Do people go to the loo in Bible stories?
More often than you think.
But do people go to the loo in 1990s action revenge thrillers?
Well, maybe this is a first then. Anyway, the courtiers buy it and they leave His Majesty in peace, and meanwhile Ehud is making his way out of the palace, and he goes past sculptures and hangings and beautiful gardens, and he goes back up the hill, and he grabs the trumpet that he left behind the boulder, and he blows, and Ephraimite troops come out from everywhere, and there's Ehud's uncle, and he's looking flushed and excited, and Ehud shouts, "Follow me! The Lord has given the Moabites into our hands!" And they charge down towards the palace, and the battle is like 9/10 of our budget.
Wow.
Yeah. Israelites slay Moabites left and right. The servants are in a panic, and you see them talking to King Eglon for ages, and they're worried that his silence is like a ponderous silence of fury. But then finally one of them goes up to him and just shakes him a little to wake him up in case he's napping, and he just kind of wobbles and then topples down. And then there's even more panic, and the Israelites are breaching the palace, and they come right into the throne room, and they're just slaying everyone before they even have a chance to pick up weapons and defend themselves.
But hang on a second. Didn't you say that was dishonourable and evil before?
Well, sir, that's only when the music is tragical and sad. When the music is exciting, then it's just good planning.
Okay.
So Ehud is slaying people, it's payback time, and even the father-in-law is joining in the killing this time, and they're fighting side by side, and the battle is finally over, and they're covered in blood, and they embrace, reconciled.
Reconciliation through killing. Classic.
Yep, yes sir, and the uncle loves Ehud now, and now we see them back up in the hill country smiling, and Ehud's wife loves him again too, and even the man in the smock gives him congratulations and a slap on the back, and he's given his land finally, and he's rich, and there's sheep, and there's children, and there's food on the table, and the sword and the trumpet that are displayed on the wall as a memento. And all is well. He's Mel Gibson.